Welcome back to Amplify Your Impact. This is a show for entrepreneurs who are out to change the world with purpose-driven businesses while increasing their wealth and balancing their personal health along the way. Warning, real life entrepreneurship is raw, and so is the show. We record it live. It is unedited and unfiltered, so activate your mula bandha and let's go. I'm Josh Biro, and today's guest is someone that you need to know because he's a rock star relationship marketer who specializes in marketing action planning with a more holistic approach, I would say, and maybe a unique billing model that we can get into here as well. Pleased to welcome with me Mr. Dustin Weaver. Hey,
Well,
Dustin.
hello. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Yeah, great dude. Super happy to have you on the podcast. Uh, Recently, I was on your podcast. Remind me the name again for the audience.
Bullseye Breakdown.
Bullseye Breakdown, which was fun. We were joking just before we got started today, Dustin and I, that we have no shortage of shit to talk about.
Yeah,
So we're like, what are we talking about today? I'm like, it could go anywhere. So fasten your safety belts. Here we go, sort of thing.
it started off with me saying that I got my face bit off last Thursday by a dog. So I've got a nice little 10-stitch growth on my lip. So sorry to any of the viewers out there that are seeing that. There's a reason.
Dustin's being polite about it. For those of you just listening to this, it's like right on the corner of his mouth, and he came on. He's like, "Hey, so this dog thing, like, I don't have a weird growth in my mouth, just so you know." He's like,
It's in the water.
it's not my fault. I just swear.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so
So,
good.
yeah.
I gotta say, total side note, my whole life I've got cold sores,
Yeah, sure.
and they are the single biggest annoyance
Yeah.
that I think I can think of physically. Like I've like broken bones and been less annoyed than getting something on your lip like that. So
I,
my
I've
heart
never had
my
one.
heart goes out to you.
I feel like this is what it feels like. I've never had one. Like I lucked out in that draw, but like this has to be what that seems like. It's the most annoying thing I've had to deal with. But
Yep.
you
Well, when
know,
your lips are moving around all the time, nothing you can do about it. All
exactly.
right, let's jump right in. I was asking a little bit about your business and marketing prior to us starting the show today, and you had sort of started the story, Dustin. But like, take us back to how you got here to who you are. Like, what's the superhero origin story? How do you end up with brand builder promotions is the actual business, but how do you end up as a marketing agency basically?
It's a total like it's. I mean, it's tale as old as time. I started out in the film industry and got my degree in film from the University of Texas, and I went directly into the film industry and actually did well in it. I ended up being a producer. I was a producer, a contract producer for Nickelodeon out in LA. Not to date myself, but there was this new website that they were really excited about. They heard good things about it, and they needed somebody to help them get content on it. And this website called YouTube had just come out, and they were stoked. Uh,
Wild.
yeah, exactly. So this was before they had YouTube awards. But so I was doing that, and then the writer strike hit, and found out that I kind of was in a bad situation with my business partner, and just was burnt out on the industry as a whole, and wanted to do something else. So as you do, I went to selling semi trucks because that's where everybody goes after leaving.
After Nickelodeon. Yeah. Direct correlation there for sure.
It makes sense to me. No, it actually there was some sensical-ism to it because I was selling trucks back to the studios. I had an in at all the studios, and so I was selling Peterbilt semi trucks to the studios. I did that for like 9 years, and that actually brought me out to Atlanta through that process, and I actually enjoyed selling semi trucks. It wasn't bad. I worked my way up in that business, and that was kind of my first taste of true big business because that business was a $7 billion business. They're the largest dealer
Whoa.
group in the world, so it's not like small fry, truck sales. I was on the cusp of one of the largest acquisition periods of dealerships in history. We grew from when I started, I think we had 70 dealerships, and when I left, they were just knocking at 500 across two major lines of semi trucks and medium duty trucks. And anyway, I got to a point where I was kind of getting poached. I had some of the manufacturers coming after me to leave this dealer group. And my best friend here in Atlanta was like, dude, we already had like a business together. We were making, my first true entrepreneurism besides being in the film industry, which that's straight entrepreneurism. But we were doing high end like cornhole games and like backyard games made of like cedar wood and $300 cornhole sets. And I told him that I was probably going to leave my job. He's like, dude, I need a head of sales at my company. And I said, well, okay. And so one thing led to another. And then as you do, you leave the trucking industry to go be the head of sales at a wood product manufacturing plant. And so I went from selling semi trucks to selling stuff to Home Depot and Michael's and Hobby Lobby and stuff like that. So, it was an interesting transition. Cut to 7 years later, I found out that, originally I came on board because the idea was that we were going to buy out the company together. It was his uncle's company. And we were working through the whole process, and long short, lost the opportunity to buy the company, and I wasn't tapped, and I went from being a future owner to being just an employee, and I didn't want to do that. So I started a company of my own, and it was actually an app that we were building out, which again, as you do, you move into building out an app for end of life planning. And I started this promotional business as a kind of a stopgap, and it worked. The promotional business was working, and the app is still kind of on the back burner. But as I was doing all the promotional gear, I had people asking me, well, what about logos? What about websites? What about social media? What about SEO? And I was like, yeah, I do all these things. I can do it, or I can figure it out. And so organically, we kind of moved down the path to working as kind of a growth consultant agency for marketing and sales, just kind of taking all the things that I've learned throughout my experience and putting it together, because I didn't like selling services because it was faceless, and I'm relationship based, and I didn't want somebody to be like, hey dude, I've paid you $6,000 for SEO this year. What is that? What have I got? Because there's no real ROI on any of that. So we changed the model up, and now what we do is we find a problem, figure out the solution, and put skin in the game with the owner of the business to make it happen. And it's worked out really well. We have transitioned in the past like 9 months to this model, and we've got some really awesome clients, some really cool opportunities, one of which I'm really excited to talk to you about, Josh, because I think it's up your alley and you can add some insight onto it. But generally speaking, that is the total sensical way of getting from being a film major to owning a marketing agency.
Yeah. Sorry, I left you on a little of a monologue there. My internet was janky, but picked it right back up. I love it.
Oh, I kept going. I was like, he's left.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. There's people going. So, yeah, talk to me about the model and that decision again. And I think you just mentioned this a little bit, but one of the things I found interesting, and that I find interesting in general right now, because I do feel like we're at this moment where when we look at something like just generically marketing and marketing agencies, the sort of the marketing agency traditional model, I would debate that it's dead or dying very quickly, and
yeah.
Right. And so like there's going to be these alternative models that are necessary. Talk to me about yours. I think that's like one of the most fascinating parts of it.
Well, so you're 100% spot on. I think the traditional marketing agency in a traditional sense of somebody who is going to find a direction and then push out through, like, working with the advertising agency to create a plan and structure and push it out to the world is gone. I mean, the advent of AI most recently has kind of what I thought has been the death knell of that whole system, just because a lot of companies can take it into their own hands. Where I find my sweet spot of people who I want to work with and people who want to work with me is it's usually mid-cap companies. It's companies that are $5 to $50 million that have a thriving business, but likely don't have a marketing department and have never really thought about putting effort into it. And so where we step in is we're effectively a fractional CMO. And we come in, we bring in a team, and we do it in a manner that is more cost effective to the client on whole. My cadre of services that I can provide for somebody in this approach of finding the target and putting together an action plan to get there is most of the times half or 2/3 as expensive as just hiring one CMO. And then you're going to have to hire all those other people there. So, using kind of the tools that we've got built out and the SOPs that we have in place in order to kind of build out that marketing department for you, there's no need for a true in-house marketing department any longer. And then the fact that the one bonus of COVID, and we're on it right now, is video conferencing. You don't have to be in the same location. I mean, look at you. You're where are you now? I mean, are you in Jakarta? Are you in where are we? Are we in Java? I mean,
I'm in Mexico. I'm in Mexico still. But exactly. I think, well, as a side note, we commented on your podcast with this too. Like the idea of needing to physically have everyone in one place for business it's beyond old school at this point. Yeah. Yes, you can debate the benefit points of it or whatever else, but I think specifically marketing in that channel, like you now as a marketer locally, like you are actually the competition has shifted. Like you are competing on a more at least state level, city level for sure, at least state level, really national level, really global. Because like if I can have, and I know companies that do this. One company I was just telling the story about the other day that they're in Eastern Europe, and like young guys, a group of 5 of them. I think the oldest one's maybe 30, like, and they're just hungry. Like they are hustling, they are hungry, and they know what they're doing, and they don't need to physically be anywhere. So for the right company, like that's a good fit. Anyways, the model, the backing up to the model thing.
Yeah.
One thing that's sort of in line with the theme of the podcast as well here is just like aligning your actions with the success of the business itself. And that model was something that you were alluding to. And so talk to me a little bit more about that, because I agree, like this idea of fractional CMOs, fractional CROs, fractional CFOs, like that's not a new concept, but I would see that there's a prevalence in it. And my business would even be an example of this. Like I can't hire an in-house CMO at that pay level because it's not their pay that is even the problem. It's everything. They need to have a whole budget as well. So
it's like $600,000 a year to get all the particular pieces on.
Right.
But even to I think get to the point of what you're asking on that question is the reason why I organically was moving here is because I was selling services. I had a service provider that was allowing me to kind of white label services, and like I was allowing, their whole thing is, oh, you can sell to 1,000 people. You can sell SEO services to 1,000 people. Bro, I don't want 1,000 clients. I don't want 1,000
right.
Because that's 1,000 problems. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean it that I don't want to scale there, but I want to do it the right way. And so what I found myself kind of leaning towards is like, first of all, I don't like screwing people over. I don't like giving subpar product, and I don't like, selling smoke and mirrors. And I think a lot of what that whole service-based sales is selling smoke and mirrors. Not to say that I wouldn't provide the product, whether it be social media, SEO, ad sales. It's all a service, but only one of those things, and that's ad sales, has a true way to mark your ROI. And so from a business perspective, what I found is that like you're selling all these services and people are like, what the hell am I paying you for? And like that just gets old, and you have churn, you have turnover, and it's like that's not worth it to me. I would rather concentrate efforts on 20 people. That the way that we go about it is like I do a discovery call, right? So Josh, you and I sit down and I say, okay, Josh, tell me about your business. And like you'll tell me everything about the Yogapreneur Collective and everything that you're trying to do right now and how you're trying to grow. and add in different verticals outside of just yoga studios. And so then we can kind of key on some things and say, okay, cool. You haven't worked with, and I'm just throwing things out here, you haven't worked with martial arts studios. This is very similarly in line with kind of your bread and butter, and I think would work. So this is the angle that we're going to attack, and we're going to set forth the way that you can get 500 martial arts studios or whatever your number is. And then it really comes down to a bit of a math game, right? Like of understanding all the touch points that you need to do and how you need to close, and the sales aspect of things that need to go in. And you can kind of back into all the work that needs to go into that, right? And you can set something which is key of like, hey, we have a goal. You're paying me to do SEO. You're paying me to do social media. You're paying me to do ads, but we're working towards a goal. And there is a plan of action. There's an action plan set forth that we are moving down across a year-long engagement to get to this goal. And that's so different than just standard marketing kind of, service-based, like, yeah, I'll do some social media for you. Well, you got 10,000 followers. Well, how many followers equal sales? You can't tell that, And so ultimately it's a good exercise for the owners that we speak with, or the CEOs, or whoever is on the other end of it, to understand the end game of it all. And what this allows us to do is, again, say it's an incremental vertical for you. You don't go after martial arts studios. And because you don't go after martial arts studios, anything we bring in is new business to you, right? So what that allows me to do is say, okay, cool, check this out. I'm going to give you two options. You can either pay me, X dollars a month for services, and we're going to take 10% of a rev share on that incremental business that you didn't have previously, or you can pay me less and I'm going to give you a 15% hit on the rev share.
Yeah.
It just depends on what works better for you. If you're short on capital, if you are, more forward thinking. And it's surprising because, not oftentimes, or most often, people will choose that higher monthly rate because they want the long term, because it's better for us if you give us the bigger percentage. And all day long we would choose that too, because we believe in what we do and we believe in the effort that we're putting forth. But what the whole process is it puts me as a partner. I'm no longer just a vendor. And so my actions are directly tied to your success. And one thing I love about that is, again, I explained this, I'm a relationship-based guy. I like to have the ability to talk through decisions and strategic elements of how businesses are working. That to me is what excites me. And when you're just selling services, you don't have that opportunity, not everybody's going to see it, but 80% of my clients before I transitioned over are like, hell yes, let's do this. We want to do this.
That's what I was going to ask, is the reception, because you're making me think of like product market fit. We have a concept that we played with too around this, because there's long story short, in coaching too, we look at it this way, that it's like we've solved for this in a different way, but we did conceptualize the idea of coaching and being paid off of growth. Mm-hmm. And so we aren't quite there yet, but it is like, it's in my head still, because really we win if our clients win. Like, it's as simple as that. The reason we've grown to be the size that we are and have the success we have is because like what we do works, and we know that. Yeah. And I don't say that egotistically, I say it confidently. And our money where our mouth is situation is that we've got a guarantee on our core coaching process.
Yeah, same here. We put that same guarantee out because we're doing the math to do the back end on it. So as long as like, just you will agree with this, as long as the studios are doing what they need to do, as long as our clients are doing what we're asking them to do, the stuff that we don't have connectivity over or touch points on, then theoretically it should work, right? It should work.
Yeah. So how do you, I have so many questions now. How do you milestone and track progress with a client then? Because if I like the idea of like, okay, we sit down, let's set clear goals on what you're trying to do. I've even personally, though, worked with agencies who do stuff like that. And where they've often fallen short, I would say the commonality is that then there's no follow up after that. It's like, it's this big hoopla up front, but then really what happens is, hence the services comment that you're making, right? Okay, we do this thing, they implement it, they get a VA running it, and then they just fucking autopilot because they want the margin to go higher. So there's no like ongoing tracking. I think that's the hard part in business. In coaching, for us, that's also the hard part, that it's like we have a lot of systems in place for us to be like, okay, it's been 3 months we're coaching on this thing. Like, what progress has been made? What numbers have actually moved? And yeah, so how do you track and milestone progress?
So you set kind of theoretical milestones at the beginning of the engagement, right? Where you should be. And you do 90-day kind of check-ins on that action plan. And, we are working to figure out our back end, because there's nothing that really exists that works for all the things that we want to do. I've gone down this path. It's quite annoying. My next transition is to build this, back end CRM, CMS that actually works for all these things. We use Notion because Notion is just so wide scale in all that it can do. And so we create our action plans in there. We use a lot of ChatGPT. We use a lot of Claude to build out these databases for us to help us kind of move in the direction of, all right, here's the engagement. We want to be at 100 martial arts studios, right? So you can go through the process, because what we're going to say is we're going to target 10,000 martial arts studios to get 100. So if in 90 days, say it's a year-long engagement, we're at 2,500 studios, and if we don't have 25 studios in the fold, then we're off target. We need to pivot, we need to move, we need to adjust, we need to figure it out. Then it's a conversation. Hey, did we overshoot the mark? Did we, are we adjusting? But our guarantee is that we will at least double the value of what we cost to you across 12 months, or we'll work for free until we do. And I don't have any VAs. We don't run with VAs. We'll eventually get to that point for additional stuff, and there's nothing wrong with VAs. I mean, I think that there's I have a lot of people that I work with in the Philippines, but they're not virtual assistants. I have an editor that works over there. I have a web design team, the leader of which was based in the US, and he happened to do a little site for something called the Olympics. He made the Olympics site. And he also did this other thing called the World Cup. I don't know if you've heard of that. So like, I know whatever he's doing is fine. Lowering overhead costs by using VAs is one thing, but like, we want to make sure that goes into not having 1,000 clients. I want 20 clients, so that I know my team, my core team right now is 6 people. And if I have to hire on to 10, that everybody's going to make a wage. They're going to be happy doing what they're doing. And the clients that we're bringing to the table, like, really get people going, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of answers a lot of those questions that you had just had of like, how do you manage across that? The short answer is that there is a clear path that is derived, right? We're going to do this. This is the approach that we're going to take. We should be here in 12 months. Every 90 days, if we're not tracking on that straight and narrow, what do we need to change? How do we need to go about it, right? So that's the quick, fast answer there. But then keeping people excited by really only, like, I can pick and choose who I work with, in the sense of I don't have to work with a doctor's office if I don't want to.
Right.
If that doesn't excite me, that doesn't excite me. One of my most exciting projects right now, and we are in the process of getting the engagement worked out. I know it's going to happen, so I'm going to talk about it. If it doesn't happen, then I'll be very disappointed. But I told you about this a little bit. We're working with a company that is working to build a global community of guys that are 35 to 65, inspiring them to be more active through adventure sports, which is
right.
amazing. And on side of that, there's a merch line that we're building out There is partnerships on a global level that we're looking for. So think of, this is a horrible thing. You would hate doing this. And so I got to go find surf shops and ski shops and board shops all over the world that want to be outposts for this organization and for this group to build this group out, right? And the guy already is one of the leaders. He's one of the leading voices for wake foiling in the world. He's got 10,000 followers just on his wake foiling content, which is a lot of followers across Instagram and YouTube. It's basically like my goal, and I hope to be able to track back to this in like 5 years. And Red Bull, if you're listening, is to buy this community as the silver bulls. You know, it's the guys that have aged out of jumping out of airplanes in wingsuits, but still can go crash down a double black diamond, you know, and not think twice about it, right? So that to me is exciting, and I can get behind that. So if I have 10 or 15 other clients like that, I don't want a VA working on that. I want to call those board shops, you know, like I want to figure that shit out.
It's an interesting thought, you know, from a more like philosophical viewpoint too. There's this idea of just follow inspiration at every moment with abandon for result. And so as an entrepreneur, I feel like that is in fact a component of what's going on. It's a little bit what you're describing. And so I like that thought that if it's awesome and you're working with the clients you want and the team is happy and you're making bank, like you don't want to give it up to someone else. You're not trying to systemize it and delegate it. You actually want to participate in it. And that would be a good signifier of like that you're on the right path, I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, I think at some point though, like it still comes down to the 80-20, right? I'm not going to be the right person to do all these things. And you gotta look at your 10x versus 2x sort of scenario. How are you going to work to scale this? The scaling of my business model comes to where I can build out another West Coast version of my operation, or it doesn't. I mean, geography is pointless.
Right.
But like, you know, you're building out sub teams, right?
Right.
So if I'm at 6 and I'm training all these people to lead these teams, well, then they can go build out their own teams. And for lack of a better term, it's like almost like a multi-level marketing, but in a good way. You know, it's like it's sub teams of it's not your traditional org structure. It's strike teams, which is how I produced. And it makes sense to me because if you have a group of people that work together well, they're gonna succeed. So
another guest we had on the podcast, Nate, he's a kind of performance marketer, more specifically in video ads. He specializes in dentists.
Okay, yeah.
But that's part of his business model too, is he calls them pods. It's like this, you know, he's got a content creator, the producer, the editor, whatever, in like a pod, but he's got 6 of them, and then they go out and do the formula. But that's what he built. It's like this little mini team.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I could see that
more sense in that regard, where you have to physically go shoot stuff someplace. 1,000%. You know, like if you need that team to be available to go do that. But you know, by and large, we run into hiccups when you're talking about social media in that regard. But if a mid-cap company is coming to the table and they need to do social media, you know, shoots, the way that we work our social media, we can plan 6 months of social media and go do the shoots for whatever it is. You know.
Well, so okay, let's take it another direction then from that point, because I feel like a lot of people listening too are going to have the really basic question that I feel like is never asked about marketing. Like, tell me if you agree or disagree with this. Would be part 1. I think the purpose of marketing is brand awareness / brand building, and then the KPI result is lead gen. It's someone, quote, walking through the doors. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so if we simplify it to that point, then what sort of unique strategy, or what's a framework, or like what's something that you use or find that works, or that's working right now to produce good marketing results? For context, the social media conversation is an interesting one because there maybe hasn't been a moment in the last 15 plus years where just pure organic content has the potential of gaining scale as it does right now today? And does that mean that every business should be doing it? Like, I don't know.
No, I think, well, okay, so I'm going to take that in chunks. My company's name is Brand Builder for a reason. Like
right.
brand building, brand identity, brand recognition is 1000% the whole reason why you market, right? And it's the reason why I'm doing Bullseye Breakdown. I need to get our company out more. I need some recognition of the fact that I am a thought expert in whatever scenario it is, out there. I also wanted to do Bullseye Breakdown because I really, we talked about it when you were on with me, which, by the way, I'm giving you credit that you didn't know what the name was because we swapped names post Josh. I did the first 6 episodes and was like, I was in a meet and greet with a future future interviewee, and he was like, "Hey, dude, you might want to check your name." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Talk about like marketing fail, just straight marketing fail. I had all these social handles. I had like a website, and like, sure as shit, there's a damn Apple podcast that's called Hitting the Mark, and very similar thought line, and the guy's like 150 episodes in. Fabian Gerhalter is his name, and it's a good podcast. Like, I didn't want to have any sort of like confusion, so we switched over to Bullseye Breakdown. But
my notes were off. I'm like, this can't be right.
yeah. So it's Bullseye Breakdown. But anyway, so that's why you start that, right? Like, you have to be able to go out and go to where people are going to be listening. Not everybody is set for every platform. And every platform right now, when you talk about social media, has a distinct group of buyers, of clients, of potential avatars that can be brought into your funnel. And so, like, if we talk about, you talk about a dentist is probably not going to do much on TikTok. They may grow their personal brand a little bit, but you're not going to find people coming in through the doors. If I'm talking about a social media strategy for a dentist, I think it's Facebook. I think you want to regionally assess where you are and make sure that you're putting ad dollars into Facebook ads for people in your general area. That makes sense for me. Whereas, I've got another client, and it's called Golf House Academy. These guys are just fucking awesome. It's 2 Aussies. One of them played on the Corn Ferry Tour and, almost was on the PGA. And the other one was the Australian Amateur Champion and played on the Asian Tour. 2 guys our age, just the best dudes you can possibly ever come across. They have a 15,000 square foot golf training facility that they're looking to scale across the country. I still am going to contact you with Tim. That you got busy and he got busy, and we're going to find that time to talk. But I'm begging them to get on TikTok. I am begging them to get on TikTok.
Yeah.
One, because just golf in general, golf on Instagram, golf on TikTok, it works, right? If you can do minute-long training session thought processes like golf's hard, don't make, or swing easy, whatever their logo is, or however or their slogan is, and however we're gonna market them. I did a test, and it was just like, this is dumb. Why are we not doing this every day? Why don't you just do 2 of these every day? There's no reason why you should. So that said, I think that it's really distinctive on where you go. I have a client that does flooring. Like, we import flooring. They have a B2C side and a B2B side. Instagram is the place for that. That's where people go for visually stunning stuff that they're going to want to buy, right? And for that matter, Pinterest. But TikTok's not the place for them. What are you going to talk about?
Well, let me ask this from that perspective, because a sort of counter thought that I have often is when you start talking about like blue ocean strategy, as it comes, as it regards in relation to marketing is what I'm trying to say. If TikTok isn't the organic channel, the dentist, the flooring place, whatever, but then like you're the only one crushing it with content on there, like would that ever be a technique that you would go afterwards?
I have a lawyer I've got on TikTok right now. Good buddy of mine that I actually met through Golf House, and he's one of our last holdouts that we just do social media services for. And we do TikTok videos in conjunction with all the other stuff. We put it on YouTube Shorts, we put it on TikTok. And if you know anything about TikTok, you know, his average view, because we're doing stuff like we're not even messing with hashtags, we're not trying to push anything. He's getting 600-800 views just on that alone. And we're putting it in Atlanta. And people say, "Oh man, I only got 600 views. I only got 800 views." Do you know how many people 800 people is? That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And you know, to get into the TikTok world of 600-800, that's an accomplishment. That's good. You know, and I didn't know that when I first started working in the TikTok world. I have the luxury that I have a friend from you know, my past life in the wood world. She has almost 650,000 followers on TikTok because she has a cow. And it's called Country Girl Custom. She's amazing. She's such an amazing soul. And her cow, you know, got her status. But you know, she's got videos that have done 15 million views. And so she kind of let me know a little secret. And then super secretly, I started a TikTok channel, and I do dad jokes on it. It's fucking awesome.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. My best video thus far has gotten almost 8,000 views, and it's a pirate joke. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely. It's my very next question.
What's a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
Oh, you think it'd be R, but 'tis the C.
I love it. It's so bad.
It's so bad. But you know, like my wife first started doing this, she's like, "What the hell are you on TikTok for? Why are you on here? Are you trying to be some influencer?" I was like, "No, I'm trying to break it." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I am trying to understand how and when to post things so that when we get Tim with, you know, Half-Life, or Tim with Golf House Academy, and Jamie, that I know when and how the structure is set so that we're not wasting time and we're pushing things." And that's the dedication. I joked about it with you before we went live of like, you know, when people ask me like, "Hey, can you do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then we get off the phone, I'm like, "Shit, I don't know how to do that." Well, I'm going to
figure that out.
Exactly. And you know, going back to the Eastern European guys, you got to be hungry. You gotta love what you're doing. You gotta be excited about learning every single damn thing. And the whole reason why you and I know each other and are friendly enough to be doing this podcast is because I was hungry for knowledge. I wanted to build a podcast that was going to give me a leg up of doing better at my job, right? Because that's the real end game of this, is like being a CEO, being the head of a company, and learning how other people have made mistakes, what they've done with them, and how you go past it. Because the whole impetus of starting Bullseye Breakdown, and I told you this as well, I read The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And Ben Horowitz started Netscape with Mark Andreessen, and then they took that up. He had a company that he pivoted halfway through and sold off one half of it, and has worked in the startup business his entire life, right? Great notes in this book, but it's all relevance to like, hey, I needed to do a $250 million VC raise. And it's like, I'm not going to do a $250 million VC raise this year. You know, and most of my clients are not going to do that as well. So I needed something that was kind of tangible to the people we were working with. And that's kind of how it started. And I know I went way off basis from the original question, and we're in a cul-de-sac.
No, I like it. So take me back to the performance part of it. Because I mean, obviously, with your model, your billing model too, you've got that skin in the game that, let's say you're working with us and then you're getting paid off of actual cash collected ultimately.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing right now? Like, marketing's interesting because there's a couple thoughts that come to mind. One is the saying, marketers ruin everything. It's like as soon as something starts to work, then people just pump it until it doesn't work. But there is like this moving target is how it appears, I think, surface level, when really my experience with marketing has been it really is more like you got to just go deep and prove it out for your business. So this is a long-winded way of getting to the question of like, yeah, what do you see works for a physical, we'll make it more specific, a physical brick and mortar business in 2025 and moving forward 2026? Like,
That's selling widgets, or are they like a service, like a
let's say service. Let's say services.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, I've had one of my first clients when I started moving into the service based portion of this is a good buddy of mine. And he has he's an electrician. Sorry.
Yeah.
Totally through there. But, electricians is a great way of understanding that. And when you talk about services, right, like service based business, so plumbers, electricians, lawn care people, whomever it is 1000% a name recognition. HVAC people, specifically electricians and HVAC and plumbers, because I could have a plumber come this week and 2 weeks from now, I'm going to forget who came, because it's not somebody who comes on a weekly basis, and it's not someone who you interact with a lot. So in terms of marketing, what is super important for like a brick and mortar service-based business is connectivity, and authentic connectivity. Doesn't mean you can't run a drip. Like my LinkedIn post, I posted on LinkedIn about this today, about being authentic with how you are using AI, right? Authentic connection to, whomever you're trying to connect with, making sure you have 60-day, 90-day touch points with your client base, making sure you have a marketing newsletter that goes out, leading with value, right? Value add communication is always key, right? As an electrician, or in any regard, being in sales and marketing for the better part of my entire life, I hate being sold to. And I smell that shit a mile away.
Yeah.
Like, anybody sends me a cold email, like I rip them. Like, I don't rip them. I'll be like, hey, nice cold email. I think you structured it well. Or, hey, dude, you screwed this up. And, so like what I mean by being authentic is, don't send a letter out that says, oh, hey, it's almost summer. You got to swap out your whatchamacallit, your air filters, and we'll do it for $99.99. It's more like, hey, guys, the weather's changing. Make sure you swap out your filters, and here's why. And then at the end of it, if you want us to do it, give us a shout.
Yeah. No like direct call to action necessarily, just the value part.
There's places for direct calls of, and there's definitely CTAs, and there's a time and a place for it. Generally, like I see this in LinkedIn communication too, and like how I'm working on a growth plan for a company in Texas that I just met with when I was back there. Her goal is, she has this amazing 25,000 square foot showroom of antiques, right? And it's antiques that are made to look antique. They're new antiques, but it's beautiful stuff. It's amazingly beautiful stuff. She's in the middle of nowhere, and she really wants to get into like custom home developers, because she's got all these doors and door frames, and like, she wants to talk to interior designers and custom developers, right? And so if she wants to go that route, my thought process for her is, let's start a LinkedIn campaign, right? But we're not going to go do a 3 email cold outreach LinkedIn campaign. That's not what it is, because you're not trying to get them to buy something from you online. You want the connection, and you want them to know that you're there. You want them to remember that you're there. So it's a LinkedIn request, and that's it. Don't send shit. Don't just request it. Because anytime something comes to me and there's a note that's put aside on it on LinkedIn, I'm like, this dude's trying to sell me something, because that's how it comes through on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like, there's very few like genuine organic connections of just like somebody trying to say hey. And so when that connection request gets accepted, then you take a minute, you get on your phone, and you go into LinkedIn via your phone, because you can actually do a voice note. And you take the time to say, hey, John, thanks for accepting my connection request. I didn't want to sound too sales pitchy, but I wanted you to know I'm here. We own blah, 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 blah in LaGrange. I'd love for you to check out the website, and keep us in mind if you need any of the things that we have as you're building out your homes. We're accessible, and we can ship, it's a genuine connection. You're not pushing anything, and it's more of like value based of like, next time you're looking for this thing, you don't have to go overseas. I got it right here.
Yeah,
So does that make sense?
it does make sense. I like this idea. We've done something similar with our cold outbound where we don't cold outbound to spam email because same thing. Like I can't stand those emails. But
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. I do the same thing as you do. Like if one's really good, I'll write back. I'll be like, "Oh, real close. Like it was great how you did this." But no thanks. But we send a Loom video.
Oh
Like we
yeah.
actually we like one at a time go to, if we're gonna cold outbound someone, we go to their website, we look at what's going on, we figure out an actual like value point that we can offer them and make them a custom Loom video one at a, and that's slow and arduous and doesn't scale up well. And the relationship establishment is more important.
Well, let me ask you, for you, what's your target? What's your monthly target for outreach? Like, how many new accounts are you trying to bring in? Does it work because you're not trying to bring in 1,000 accounts?
Right. That is part of it too. Like, let's suppose we had our total addressable market is smaller. That's why we're expanding actually as well. But
Into
if we
martial
got
arts.
to martial arts, right. But like, if we got 1,000 replies in a month, like couldn't even do anything with them,
Yeah.
you know? So that there is that element to it too. But
Yeah.
backing us up, like one of the things I'm hearing, you're talking about plumbers and electricians and stuff, which is so obvious as you say it, is just brand recall. Like
Yeah.
if I need a plumber, the brand that I can be like, that's the brand, like that's who I'm gonna fucking phone, or at least who I look up first,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or SEO. It's like it's that, or it's plumber near me, and it's who's ever in the top 3 with the best rating, and that's it. Like there's no other criteria for choosing a plumber if I don't know anything else.
1,000%. And like that's the flip side of that, right? For organic development, like keeping track of the people that you've already been to so that there's brand recognition, and or spending money on SEO. And there's very few times that I'm like, dude, you need SEO. If you're in a service-based business that's brick and mortar that relies on your direct 5-mile radius, you need to be number one. And what
Yeah.
people don't understand is like, you put in the money and the effort into getting to be number one on SEO for the Googles, and then you type in plumber in Atlanta, and there's 5 things that pop up above where you are at number one.
Yeah.
Because you're not putting money in toward the ads.
Yeah.
And that's, you have organic and then you have ad supported.
That's one thing we find that with yoga studios too, that like it's an interesting, I'd be curious to hear what you're seeing or what you think about in general, like tactic for SEO right now, because local SEO for a yoga studio or a Pilates studio or whatever that we would work with, we've got studios like they've been there for 20 years. Like, they've got a lot of SEO juice theoretically there, and they're actually going down in ranking.
mm-hmm.
And it's because it's not that dynamic. They're not doing a weekly blog that's SEO driven or blah blah blah. And I'm not even sure that it's worth that effort. But SEO's changed so much that it's fascinating. Like they do actually have more risk now where they never had to pay attention to it before, where they can go way down that first page, or even worst case scenario, leave the first page.
Right.
Or the Google stack, the map stack, that's a
Yeah.
huge one.
Yeah.
We have a service that we offer
Okay.
where we'll guarantee that we get you ranked in the top 3 in the map stack within a 5-mile radius of your studio within 90 days.
Okay.
And there's a tech company that I work with that does it on the backside, like the technical side of how we do that.
Sure.
But it's because we find like that's the SEO that matters for your average studio, not the website anymore. Because anyways, I'm rambling.
Well, no, you're not rambling.
From a localized standpoint, yeah. What do you even do with SEO now? Like
So
there's the old school like H1 tags and titles and but like
so there's a standard, right? Like when you're talking about, and for those, because SEO is literally smoke and mirrors to
yeah
95%. It's like, what do you mean SEO? There's a robot crawling the internet, and it's like, yes. So to your point, just for a cursory like 30-second knowledge base, SEO is how easy it is to find your site, how much your site has grown out and how many other sites, how many pathways there are to get to you. And when someone types in the keyword of yoga, how quickly, how often, how important you place that on your site. There's ways to grow that, right? Like you said, writing blog articles, getting link backs, creating other ways to put your site in various different areas that have channels back to it. Well, the Google bots are going to crawl your site and see all these things and see where you stack up. And that's how it ranks things organically amongst all that. So the more that you do, the more blogs you post, the more areas in which you're cited on other sites, that's going to give you more credibility, right? Here's the most important thing that is changing daily. AI has changed the way we search the internet.
Yeah.
So
I don't even search the internet first anymore. It's second.
Yeah. So you have SEO, which is search engine optimization. And I'm going to screw up this next one just because I do that. And hey, look, I got bit by a dog this week. Give me a break. So what's happening is, like, through searches, only 60% of Google searches now end with a click. So only 60% of them are actually clicking on the site. What that means is people are getting the information, and or bots from AI are going and sourcing this information and bringing the information back, or they're getting the answer through the AI description that's coming up on like Bing or Google at the top half, to where they don't even need to search the stuff that's laid out before that. The new term that is really becoming more prevalent than SEO is GEO, and that is Generative Engine Optimization. I didn't screw it up. And what that means is, like, when you go to ChatGPT and you're like, hey, yo, what's up, Chad? Tell me the best yoga studio in Atlanta. It's going to search the web. It's going to do its own search. And there is bots that are crawling through that. And so what my team right now is working on is figuring out how to optimize and be the best at optimizing for GEO. Because
Totally.
that is the next tier. That's like, next level beats, right? And one of the big things with GEO is Reddit. People need to be on Reddit to get the benefit of GEO, which there, I'm sure, are a ton of yoga Pilates subreddits, yoga owners, yoga studios. That's where, the communication happens in what was once kind of a subculture. It's now becoming more prevalent, because if you think back to what Reddit was from its beginning stages, it's where people went to talk about the actual details of things, right? And by and large, it was intelligent conversations. That intelligence is out the window, but it's where stuff is headed. So
it's really fascinating, because you end up with, like, it's like SEO on drugs. It's like SEO on crack. It's this weird self-feeding thing, this crowdsourced knowledge base of stuff to give you, I don't know, my brain's spiderwebbing into all sorts of things. Like, there's an objective truth around things, and then there's like the Wikipedia truth around things. So like Reddit's a good example of that, where I don't know, I go on as a business coach. Like, we have a show that we do once a week called Spill the Booch, and we do like reaction talks through different things, and Reddit threads are often
that's the most yoga thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally. And so, like, we go and we pull some stuff off Reddit and sort of reacts to it and talk about it or whatever. And long story short, from a business coach standpoint, 90% of the upvoted stuff as a response to like a yoga business related question is garbage. Like, not at all what we would coach towards and what we've seen objectively do something, but is, to your point, therefore what would come up in GEO. So what a fascinating moment we're in.
Well, and that's also why, like, if you get into ChatGPT, it's got the disclaimer at the bottom. It says ChatGPT is not always right. So as you're building
Yeah.
out your GPTs, as you're building out your databases for projects and things along that lines, like, you need to understand, and you can't just go 100%. Like, and as it gets deeper, there will be different, kind of safeguards against that, and double checks. But if I'm building out a project, like, in the instructions of however I'm building a chat GPT, um, I'm going to have it do, fact checks on itself before it brings back
Yeah.
information,
Yeah.
depending on what it is, so, but
So
you're right.
GEO instead of SEO, Google Stack is the other place. It's fascinating. The most interesting takeaway from that, in my mind, from a simple standpoint, is the 60% of searches ending up in a click. That is already that low. And I guess it's not surprising because to the original point that I was saying, like, I don't search. If I'm going to Google to search for something, like, it's real specific what I'm looking
Mhm.
for, and I've
Mhm.
already done 5 other steps ahead of that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to go through and scroll and click. I'm just
Well,
going to
and
ask an AI to do
most of
it.
the time, like, if I'm searching like that, and if it's a local search, yeah, I'm on an Apple phone. I'll go to Apple Maps and just type it in, and
Yeah,
then it's got that to
yeah.
it. And same thing, SEO is going to build you up there as well. It's the same setup. It's just a different bot. One's Google, one's Apple.
Well, I think too, I would comment that, like, I was recently in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was like, cool, like, where's a place to go for dinner tonight? Near, and I wanted to know that it was near the Airbnb that we were in, right? So
Mhm.
I don't search that on Google. I search that on Maps and
Mhm.
see what comes up, and then I click to the map profile. So, like, that's actually how I'm performing the search.
Yeah.
I did go through the effort to be like, what's the best breakfast joint? Like, we'll make a specific trip to find, like, the good breakfast joint. But then the top 5 results are like some Yelp list and some other aggregator. Like, it's all bullshit. It's not good information, and it's so laborious to go through the information. So, like, I just immediately give up and then go to AI to do it instead.
Yeah.
And then maybe jump back into Google. But, like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's been an interesting shift where how we would have used searching psychologically and what shows up at the top of search even just 5 years ago, but especially 10, like, wildly different now. So I think it'll only amplify this.
It will.
Okay.
But, and the final thing I'll say on that, though, is, like, you're still going to have local listings, and you're still going to have the SEO for people like plumbers, people like yoga studios.
Sure.
Still have to have that, and to be successful, you still got to be on the top of it.
Yeah.
When my friend was like, "Hey, man, I don't know, I'm not seeing the value of this SEO," and I'm like, "All right, bro, I'm not gonna make you get it. Like, I'm not gonna keep you on here. But this is, uh, for what you're telling me your problems are. Like, this is dumb to cancel it, right? This is a dumb thing to cancel."
Yeah.
So anyway,
Right. It's just forever. You're the kind of business plumber someone's going to search.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
What, what are you guys seeing in terms of, like, advertising specifically from a agency perspective? What I'm thinking about is, like, okay, you're coming up with a strategy for a business that comes on with you. You clearly are going to get like, better payout if you get better results. Ads are part of the equation potentially, in that there's speed with them. That game seems to have changed a lot as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So what would be a standard protocol you guys are using right
Well,
now
I'll use
for
I'll
ads?
use the the engagement that we're on with these wood suppliers, like the hardwood suppliers. One is B2B, one is B2C, right? So the advertising approach for a B2C is going to be very different than an advertising approach for a B2B. B2C, like, when you talk about searching, I want hardwood floors. I want high end hardwood floors at a discount. I'm going to search that in Google. And that's where the few things that I'm going to actually look up.
Mm.
So I will put the money for B2C into Google Ads for the Mara surfaces. They are equivocal of tile. Oh God, easy for me to say, tile bar, but in a wood world, right? So that makes sense for me. When you're talking about a more concerted approach of B2B, like I'm not going to the end user for it's called Luma Hardwood. Luma Hardwood is contracting to do 15,000 square foot houses at, you know, $20 a square foot. This is like
Right.
high end import stuff. You need to find the contractors. You need to find the interior designers, right? And so the advertising that you're going to be putting forth in that regard would be actually oddly boosted on Instagram, because twofold there, the people that are going to see that are going to send it to their designers, but there's a lot of designers that are looking at Instagram for inspiration, maybe a little bit of like Pinterest, but the area in which that I would spend the time to put effort into advertising would maybe be more someplace like a LinkedIn, where you can actually get
Right.
connected to those developers, to those interior designers, those architects on the front end. And again, then you're developing kind of a relationship of maybe not this one, but you need to know we're here, right? It's
Yeah.
a different outcome. If you want to sell a widget right now, Google Ads. If you want to develop a relationship that's more long term, LinkedIn, you know, maybe Instagram, definitely
Yeah.
not TikTok. You know?
I like that. I like that take though of like using the advertisement and the end result not being, you know, click through optimized sale, being relationship ultimately.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's a bigger payout long term. That's congruent with what we're sort of thinking, seeing, hearing, testing, whatever as well. But
How are
hmm.
you guys doing it? Because there's probably not a lot of yoga studio owners on LinkedIn. I would assume, maybe. Am I wrong in
Dude,
that?
I'm still no, there's more than you would think. The two places that I've been surprised, the yoga studio, Pilates studio, wellness businesses, like they actually are on LinkedIn and on Reddit for that matter,
Yeah,
more
yeah,
than I would have originally thought. They don't hang out there though, right? Like posting on LinkedIn hasn't produced a lot for us
right.
from an organic standpoint, but the connection component of it is there. And it's not that they never go. It's just like it's a more deliberate place.
Yeah.
Um, so I might be sleeping on ads there. We haven't really pushed that point too much
So
to test it out enough.
let me ask you this, because you're in an interesting position too, because there's various different ways for what you do and how you do it. One of the things that, like, if you were to say, "Hey, Dustin, I'm looking to do something to where I can maybe get access to some people." I starting to build your brand the way that you're doing it with the podcasts and actually putting your face out there. And we have it so hard because we're both so shy, and we just have a hard time talking in front of people. But realistically, I mean, I think honestly, like TikTok for you would not be a bad spot, truthfully. And then,
I've got a TikTok channel for
oh,
myself.
I'm coming.
Yeah, what I think's interesting is it has no specific strategy or effort that's going
No,
on, you know, but like we also have a business TikTok channel like under the brand name, and it doesn't hit anything. Even if we
no,
post the identical video, like zero engagement, basically no views. It's and again, no specific strategy that we're employing on it, but yeah, the comment I would make is TikTok is really is that person to person
it is. It is.
thing.
And so stop or not stopping there. The other thing is growing a bit of a YouTube following, because I do feel like, you know, you might have the ability to work through there. Um, I've got a consultant that I'm working with. This dude is sharp, because essentially I've gotten to the point where I don't have time for outreach. And I'm bringing him in to support the personal brand development of, you know, marketing the podcast, marketing, you know, LinkedIn, and helping me to, you know, do some of the legwork of getting my personal brand out there a little bit more. But all of everything that I'm saying here is leading up to one thing, and that is having enough recognition to where you can say, "Hey, I'm going to host a session. I'm going to host an online coaching session. It's a $100 entry or free entry, however you want to do it, that is essentially a lead gen space for you, right?
Mm.
And I think you've done something like that in the past, right? With online coaching support, like in
Yep,
groups.
we've got a private group that has had different iterations throughout the years, but has effectively created something like you're describing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think is an interesting way, because you're right. You got to find out where that ICP hangs out, right? And
Mm.
if it's Reddit, if it's YouTube, if it's TikTok, I think that just knowing when you get down the different rabbit holes of what's on TikTok, I think that there is a thriving community for
Yeah.
wellness brands on TikTok. And it's kind of the mindset of you. If you look like an average if you look at an average TikTok user, it's going to be younger. They're going to be health conscious most of the time. They're going to be, more technologically savvy. And it's an interesting way to think about it, right? As opposed to going and ripping an Apollo list for, 5,000 Pilates studio owners that you're then sending out a cold call to,
Yeah.
or going with your current approach, which is a fine approach. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's a bad approach. But it's just a different angle, right?
Well,
And
and you know what? For us, bluntly, it's a mediocre approach. We've tried cold outbound a lot, and there
yeah,
was a time a decade ago where cold outbound was how I got traction going when I had nothing,
yeah,
and it was just me doing it by myself, and it was really
yeah,
more about just grinding out some numbers.
yeah,
But like we've tested it every way from Sunday. I feel like at this point, it just doesn't get the results
yeah.
for the effort. Like
Because
at this
everything's
point,
changing right
we're moving in a direction of complete abandonment of it altogether
now. Yeah.
in the traditional sense of like cold email outbound and stuff.
Yeah, and
So
I did the same thing for merchandise, right? Like I try to do a cold outreach campaign for merchandise, because all that is cold calling, right? You got to cold call and be like, "Hey, you want some shit?" You know,
right,
and,
right,
a lot of my merchandise clients have come from a just a word of mouth, and who I know locally. I mean, I have clients kind of nationwide at this point, but it's a total word of mouth situation. Like I just did, like I said, I got back from Austin this past weekend. I was there for the UT Rugby 40th anniversary reunion. I played rugby for UT. Ergo, I'm rebuilding their website and I'm doing the merch.
right.
This one's not going to break the bank, and this is more because I want my team to have cool shit. But that's kind of how that goes. And so, to your point, I don't know where it will end up, but I know it's changing, and you constantly got to be thinking about what that next best approach is, and
Yeah.
putting yourself around people who are young, hungry, and are seeing that change. Um, so
Well, this is a good segue to the next sort of like one bigger question towards the end here. What's the hill you die on? When we talk about marketing, when we talk about business, you've got this holistic approach, small team, picky about who you work with, so you can sort of really guarantee more success. Well, literally guarantee
yeah.
success. Different billing model, all of these techniques. What's the maybe unpopular opinion you have, or the hill you would die on that you're like, I just believe that this this is true, and people might not love it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting because when you look at it, it's like if I were to pick a hill that I was going to die on, I've already said that selling services sucks, and I don't want to, oh, well, you can scale it so quick. Like, I don't want to be that guy, like
Mm.
I would rather, don't get me, I mean, let me back that up. I like money. Money is important to me, but when I first moved to Atlanta, I met this girl, and her dad was a Methodist minister, and her mom basically did philanthropy throughout her life because she was connected to the United Methodist Church. And I was coming from LA and having these big dreams of joining golf clubs and putting tangible things first, right? Things over experiences and where you want to be. um, I really bugged the shit out of her until she said yes to be my wife. And you know, um, she has taught me a lot about what really matters in life. And so the hill I die on is like, I don't have to take a client just
Mm.
for the money. Even if I'm struggling, I would rather make sure my team is excited about what we're doing and is excited to come to work. And that, we can build and foster that growth mentality off of what we're working with. Because the way that I've set the business up, if we do well with the clients that we have, then, say we're taking 10% and we grow something $2 million. That's 200 grand,
Yeah.
straight profit. That can go to a lot of different things. And if you do that 10 times over, that's a lot of money for a small lean organization to be at. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to be a $50 million agency. I want to have the right people in the right place, knowing that we're helping the people that we need to help and doing the things that we want to do, and not take the shit that I don't want to. And then, at the end of the day, if all that doesn't work out, I want to know that I made the decision to do what I'm doing on my own. And,
Mm.
I didn't have to say yes to something because of any reason that was on my own. Is
Yeah.
that fair?
I like it. Last question that I have for today. You've sort of alluded to this, and we even in the intro, we're talking about this idea of a holistic approach and making sure that your efforts are tied to client success and et cetera, et cetera. Where does that come from? Like, why do you give a shit? If you're working with me, like, why do you care? Why not just sell me a widget or a service and just take money and just whatever?
No, it's a really good question. I think a lot of it is life lessons. Being in the film industry for 10 years, that industry is, how can I step on your back to climb up that ladder? And you never know who your friends are. You never know why you're in a scenario. Like when I was single and I was a producer at Nickelodeon and I would go out, like the guys I met the first night I moved into LA were like promoters, and I didn't understand what promoters were, right? And I could get into all these amazing Hollywood clubs and never have to wait in line. And I didn't realize how cool that was until like I was leaving LA. But I would go out and these girls would come up to me and like they'd say, "What do you do?" That's their lead off, right? Like, what do you?
Hmm.
And I just got so tired of it. Like, and I guess maybe this is just how I was raised, but being in this industry, I actually had a whole fucking script. Oh yeah, I'm a pistachio farmer up in Ojai. I'm just down here from the weekend, and I literally could talk about farming pistachios ad nauseum, like, and work on my voice and whatever it was. And like, just because like if someone's gonna lead off with that question, then they're probably not somebody I need to
Right.
be, right.
Yeah. Their
um,
objective is something else.
yeah. So going back even further a little bit, I guess like the reality is that I was raised in a way by parents who were entrepreneurs, and they always took care of their own. They took care of us, and they made sure that the business dealings that they did were on board. They both were screwed over by business partners, and I had to watch that uh, growing up. And so it's just kind of a moral compass
Hmm.
of like, I I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of somebody who's paid a bunch of money and not seen any return. And so thereby, like, if I'm gonna do what I'm gonna, if I'm putting out something, I'm gonna do my best at it. I'm gonna give it my all. And I guess there's no like one defining moment other than like just being raised in that position and then coming through kind of an industry which is so the antithesis of that, to where like it's important for me to have trust. It's important for me, and I don't have trust issues. I'm probably overly trusting, truthfully. I'll give you all the trust in the world until you convince me I don't need to, right? Because I believe I'm a total dreamer. I'm a total glass half full kind of guy. I believe that there's good in this world as long as you put it out there. And I think that at the end of the day, if you act that way towards people, it will come back to you. And
Hmm.
there are people out there that will kind of take advantage of that, but it hasn't stopped me yet. And I'm probably in a much better position now than if I would have, taken the dark side and, gone down the path of just trying to screw people over for my betterment in the film industry. And it's not all that way, but by and large, it's pretty bad.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is totally in line with, well, the business ethics, sort of a moral compass in business that we talk about a lot in my profession too. And it's why, like, our coaching program we call Ethical Coach, and this is why, because coaching is maybe surprising to some people who haven't seen it. Like, behind the scenes in the larger coaching industry, just a lot of bullshit, a lot of like people who don't know what they're doing, just taking money to quote coach. It's like, I just want to take your money to tell you, to just talk to you about some stuff and not actually get a result in some way. And anyways, that little tangent aside, it's like, yeah, you have a moral compass and business ethics that I feel like you have awareness on them. You can implement them. I like that.
Yeah.
It's important. Business leadership is the most important leadership of our time.
Yeah. No, it is. And I've been under all facets of, good and bad leadership through fear, leadership through support.
Mm.
I know that I don't like being led by fear, so I've never led by fear. I've always been supportive. It's always like a servant leader sort of situation where, when somebody asks me, like, how do you coach your team? Like, if my team was on here, they'd probably give me a whole load of shit and I'd love it. And it would all be funny and it would all, be to a point that it is what it is. But I'll tell you one thing, I've got 6 people that have been by my side for 2 years and working through this all, that, like, no matter what happens, someone could tomorrow be like, Dustin, hey, I'd like to offer you the CEO job of this $50 million company. And you know what, Josh? I would bring every single one of those people with me wherever they go. They have, they have shown their dedication to me, and I will forever show my dedication to them.
Yeah.
That is life. That is relationships, and that is how businesses grow and win.
I think it's good final advice. I was going to ask you a final advice, but like, you just did it, dude. Mic drop. I love it. Where can people find you if they're interested in what you do and working with you? How should they get in contact?
You can find me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn, and it's Chief Builder is my my backslash there. You can go to brandbuilderpromotions.com. We're actually in the process of kind of transitioning this to the Brand Builder Agency because we're no longer just focusing on promotions. But brandbuilderpromotions.com is the way to go if you want to check out our podcast. And I seriously want everybody that's listening right now to go check Josh's episode out, because we killed it. It was such a good podcast, and I really had so much fun doing that. But that's at bullseyebreakdown.com. We'll take you to all the different areas, but it's on everything. It's on Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio and YouTube, so you can find it. But yeah, I would love,
check it out.
If anybody's listening and you just want some advice and getting I do consultations. I like doing this. I like giving people kind of some ideas on where they can grow. So feel free. I'm happy to help you.
That's it. Reach out to Dustin if you have any more questions or help. Check out our podcast episode, and obviously stay tuned for next week's episode here, Amplify Your Impact. It's been awesome having you on. We could keep going for infinity. I feel like we even get into more. We'll have to do a follow-up here, but
I'd love to.
Thanks, Dustin, for